This week on the Orange Box podcast, we talk about Expedition 33's AI controversy, the potential massive price increase for the 5090, the discontinuation of the Steam Deck LCD, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 1188. I am your host, the man who has been turned into a sheep more times than he can count, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man who is increasing his cost to $5,000, Justin, better known as I'm Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not bad, honestly. It's been relatively, quiet and simple. New Year's Eve, my mom generally had parties every year for my niece and nephew, New Year's Eve parties, but this year she went over to my sister's and had it there. I went there as well, and we had the party there. Spent some time again with my niece and nephew. They enjoyed that. My nephew went to play some more Smash Bros, so we played some more Smash Bros. And then, later on went back. Today was the first day going back into the office for me, so that was it was nice working from home when I was doing that over the break, but that all things must come to an end. Saturday was a bit of a frustrating day for me just because I had intended on playing some Half-Life Alyx and a few other VR games, but for something's not working right now with my headset, because, or I think it might just be something with Steam or Steam VR specifically, because initially when I plugged everything in and had everything set up, it said there was an issue with the headsets, and so I was like, weird. Let me, try rebooting Steam. Got the same message when I tried pulling up Steam VR, and still had issues. And I thought to myself, okay, how about if I just go and plug the USB cable into a different port of my computer? And I did that, so that went away. I was like, all right, cool. However, there's another error message saying that, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something to do with the window manager. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on here? Because I did not have this problem before when I used my headset in November. So I was really confused. I was looking up a whole lot of different things, and especially with regards to Linux, I didn't know if there was anything on that end. Although, since this is Steam and Valve we're talking about, they are, probably one of the more Linux-friendly platforms you could be using. So some people said that, you would have, or also I think some official support from Valve was saying to, use a different window manager and stuff, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm using a Windows manager that is compatible, even with a listing that is, that they stated. Additionally, again, I used the headset back in November and it was working fine, so I'm not certain what the issue is. I even uninstalled and reinstalled Steam VR, and I also tried validating all the files, but that didn't seem to change anything at all. So I'm not certain what the issue is right now, and after spending probably about 4 to 5 hours fussing with everything, I just ultimately gave up for the day and said I'll come back some other time and try to get this straightened out, because I was just at my wit's end at that point. But I might even just try seeing if I uninstall Steam and reinstall and see if that does anything or not. But I don't know. I'll see what happens there. But yeah, that is essentially everything that's happened with me over the past week.
Well, I hope you can get that figured out, because it's always annoying when you come across those issues, especially because they're so infrequent when it comes to PC gaming. It's like, using other PC software, sure, incompatibilities, oddities, having to troubleshoot and just annoyances across the board sometimes. But with gaming on PC, that's like the one area, at least for me, where I almost never have issues. And so it's frustrating when that happens. But let's see here. In terms of my week, well, Friday I went back to work, and same thing. Obviously I've been working Monday, Tuesday this week as well. It's just getting back to the back in the swing of things. Basically kind of wrapping up a couple things that I didn't get to wrap up at the end of last year for one reason or another, but basically everything that I needed to get done was done. It was just a couple of like basically tying the bow on a couple of things that needed to be taken care of. So I've done that, and now I'm going to be starting to get into some of the new stuff and delegating some of my older responsibilities over to one of the other people on my team, the idea is hopefully transition them over to taking over one of the things that I was doing a lot in my previous role, which would be immensely helpful, or at least, parts of it, at least the initial, communications related to one of the things that I was doing that could take up quite a bit of time. And, have someone else working on that consistently, it would be very helpful. So that's the goal with that. But otherwise, let's see, New Year's Eve, we basically just hung out most of the evening. We wanted to watch over the Christmas break and everything. We went ahead and did a month of Netflix so we could watch the final season of Stranger Things, and so we did that and watched the finale on New Year's Eve, and then the kids were obviously in the other room just playing games and whatnot, and then we watched Into the Spider-Verse before it was time for everybody to go to bed, just after midnight. And not a whole lot else with that. I know you're not a fan of Miles Morales and the multiverse stuff, but I do like Into the Spider-Verse quite a lot. And at least that one, when they kill off Peter Parker, which isn't a spoiler because it happens at the beginning of the movie, it's done in a respectful way instead of it being like what they did with Spider-Man 2, where they effectively killed him off without actually having the balls to kill him off. But then we watched Across the Spider-Verse the next day, we started it the next day and finished it the following day because it's it's 2.5 hours long. And just timing wise, it didn't work out to do that because it took longer to get pizza made on Friday, so we ended up getting a late start. But that one, of course, I knew it was going to have a cliffhanger ending, and it wasn't like something like, oh man, I can't believe I have to wait for this. I mean, at least we don't have to wait as long, but it's still not till 2027 that the final movie is coming out. So it's like, man, and I think Across the Spider-Verse came out in 2024, I believe.
Well,
so it's like a big gap between this second part and the third part. So it's like, But for the most part, I liked the movie, though. The only thing that, I didn't like was that they had to bring in some of the alternate versions of Spider-Man or Spider-Woman that were, face palm. Like, the one that has crutches. I mean, that's in a wheelchair and has crutches that shoot webs out. Or like a pregnant woman, Spider-Woman riding a motorcycle with an afro. And I mean, I don't mind the alternate universe stuff. I think in general I find that interesting because it's just kind of like, okay, this is an alternate version based on different things. And I'm sure you're probably more along the lines of you're okay with there being alternate versions of Peter Parker, but not alternate Spider-Man with different, stuff and everything. And
Yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah. Because, you're such a racist person, and I'm apparently progressive because I'm okay with the alternate versions. But anyway, yeah, I just find some of that interesting. Like, I always thought the concept of Gwen being the one to get bitten by the spider instead of Peter, I found that a really interesting concept. And while I certainly don't necessarily, I can't say anything about what the quality of the comics or anything, and some of the presentation of Gwen, at least in these two movies, has been of Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman, I guess is what she's calling herself. But in that case, like, I don't mind that representation of her, or that version of her. I don't know if it's like over, like beating you over the head with the message or whatever, in the comics, and it doesn't really matter to me because I've never been into the comics. But obviously I still think Peter Parker's the best Spider-Man, but I like at least I like Miles as a character, regardless of how you feel about Miles. And I think the one thing that I do, at least with the games, the first two games, not counting Spider-Man 2, what I liked about what they did with Miles was that, I mean, for one, he was a likable character, but there was never a situation where it felt like it was just them disrespecting Peter in order to make Miles Spider-Man. Although, of course, then the last game, they basically disrespected both Peter and Miles to lift up Mary Jane, and then they effectively killed off Peter in order to make Miles the only Spider-Man. Which is just like, you did both characters dirty. You did all the characters dirty. It's like, why did you do that? Why? It's so frustrating. Especially, the other thing is, like, because Miles' powers are so different, with him having the invisibility and the electric powers, and also just because of some of the refinements they made to the combat system and that sort of thing. I actually found playing as Miles in the Miles game was a little more fun than playing as Peter, but I still think the first Spider-Man is overall a better game. It's just the Miles Morales game is kind of like, it's less, I guess you could say bloated, because, like, I wouldn't say Spider-Man Remastered is actually bloated, but it is, there's more, it's not as refined, I guess you could say. Spider-Man Remastered is not as refined as Miles Morales, but Miles Morales as a game, as good as it is, I don't think is necessarily as good as Spider-Man Remastered. It's hard to explain exactly what I mean, but anyway, that side tangent aside, hasn't really been anything else going on this week. So, at least nothing I can think of. Yeah, I really can't think of any. Oh, that's right. I have some. Oh yeah. Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So I smoked a brisket and a pork loin roast because, I mentioned that I had that big, huge pork loin that had been frozen forever, and so it was too big to do the full thing in a brine for pork loin pastrami, so I just did half of it for the pastrami, and then I did a third of the brisket that I had, because I had 2/3 of a brisket left in the freezer. 1/3 I smoked, the other third I put in the brine to make pastrami, and with the pork loin I did half of it to make pastrami, and the other half I smoked. So those came out really well. And but I have both of those. I had the two things brining, and I think tomorrow is the earliest that I can smoke it. I haven't figured out for sure whether or not I'm going into the office tomorrow. I might actually need to work from home. But we'll just kind of see how things are going in the morning, whether or not I can actually go to the office, since Wednesday, Thursday is supposed to be my days. But anyway, that's it.
Okay, I actually have a question for Across the Spider-Verse. To my understanding, Miguel O'Hara, or Spider-Man 2099, is in that movie, correct?
Yep.
And I guess my question is, from what I guess, images I've seen here and there, he plays, or it seems like he plays a more antagonistic role. Is that also correct than what you would?
Yes and no. Essentially, the role he plays, and this doesn't really spoil anything because it's pretty early on after you meet him, is that he is kind of the leader of a bunch of Spider-Man women from alternate universes, who is focused on repairing the timeline from all of the events, all the anomalies that cause rifts and cause all the oddities that happen when the collider, I can't remember what it is, but when that went off, and then that brought alternate universe Spider-Man and stuff into Miles's thing. And yeah, so it's basically he's kind of the head of that, but because of some of the things that how Miles tries to get himself involved with the whole process and how that ends up causing more issues, Miguel ends up being essentially an antagonist.
Okay. Yeah, because I was, when I saw the images and stuff that I had seen here and there, I was almost slightly jaded, not completely jaded. I would actually say that Miguel, I'm kind of indifferent toward as a character, just because in the comics, at least, or at least when he started out, he was someone from the future way after Peter would have been long dead, essentially.
Right.
Like in the year actually 2099, right. So Peter would have been long dead at that point. So he had been researching Spider-Man and part of this as part of his science research team, and essentially trying to recreate Spider-Man in a sense. So I've been more lenient toward him than with Miles, since Miles essentially was trying to be, or at least written to be, a replacement for Peter, whereas this is like a continuation of a legacy, sort of like with Terry McGinnis and Batman Beyond. So I was more lenient toward him. So like when I saw that he was being, or at least how it was perceived as him being, I guess you could say, more villainous, I was like, I don't know, that doesn't sound right to me. So I guess that makes sense.
It's not a simple thing. I mean, as most villains nowadays are just not really written simply. And I mean, I guess he's not technically a villain. He is and he isn't. I wouldn't really say he's a villain. He's just an antagonist to Miles because of various reasons that would be spoilers. But yeah.
And I guess one question on this sort of topic of Spider-Man multiverse: did you ever play Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions back?
No, it was one that I always wanted to check out, but by the time I actually got around to thinking of grabbing it, it was ridiculously expensive. So,
okay, yeah, I that was one that also was a game I had been interested in trying out, but I never had a PS3 or Xbox, and Activision pulled all the Spider-Man games off of PC, so like you can't get that anywhere essentially.
Yeah, I'll probably just try emulating it at some point. I would imagine. I mean, there might be a patch for the PS3 version through emulation to where you could get a higher frame rate. I don't know if there is, because some games have it and some games don't. I mean, like Demon Souls, you can do at a really high frame rate, but then there's a lot of other games that you really can't do that. So I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Well, what have you been playing this week?
So sort of as I said earlier, this is just to get this out of the way. Played some Smash Brothers with my nephew. Also played some Super Mario 3D World. Did a couple levels, but then I had to take care of other stuff, so I just left him to continue playing by himself until he eventually, said, I want to go back to Smash. So, did that. But as far as what I've been playing, it's been very light and straightforward. So one of the first things I actually did play was a game called Super Mario Bros. Z. And for anyone watching this who might not know what this is, back in the mid to late 2000s, there was an online web series called Super Mario Bros. Z. And I learned about this from one of my cousins who showed this to me, and I was like, whoa, this looks really cool. What is this thing? And essentially it was just like a YouTube series, and I think you can still find some of the episodes today. I think also it's been like rebooted, because originally I think there were six to 8 episodes, but then it was discontinued, like it hadn't been continued, whatnot. But essentially, it's a combination of Super Mario Brothers, Sonic, and Dragon Ball Z combined, and it's nothing. The story's nothing extraordinary. It's pretty simple. It's like a Dragon Ball Z episode. However, the fighting choreography is excellent, especially during like the 2 episodes on Yoshi's Island. Like, it's incredible. And so I'm probably going way more into depth with the series, but essentially it was a short web series, and it was pretty interesting. It was fun stuff, and there was an idea to make a game out of it. And so I actually found out about this recently because I saw just a video pop up on my YouTube feed about saying Super Mario Bros. Z, the game. And that's what this is. It's just a fan game with pretty much most of what you can expect from the actual series. So you have Mario, you have Luigi, Sonic, Yoshi, you have the Axum Rangers, who serve at who I think, or Axum Rangers X, because they're rebuilds of the Axum Rangers from Super Mario RPG. You have I can't remember, they're called the Cooper Brothers, and they're sort of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the series, acting as that. And you can play as all these characters, and the gameplay is sort of reminiscent of an episode of Super Mario Bros. Z, just because of how combat works. Now, unfortunately, I haven't really figured out everything, because I don't know what the block button is, for example. I've been hitting every button on my controller, but I still don't know how to get to work. I mean, even on the website, which I saw when I downloaded the game, it said you can map the controllers to the settings, but I went to the settings and I couldn't see any control settings, so that was interesting. But the game is fun. I mean, it's not extraordinary, I think it's not groundbreaking, but for what it is as a fan game, it does a good job at replicating the series. And you can do flashy attacks, you can launch enemies through walls and objects into new areas, you can do special combos in the air and try like clash. So it really is a great job at replicating the spirit of the web series. And I think there's like going to be a new update coming for Mecha Sonic, just to give him sort of like an imperfect form, or at least imperfect mode. So that will be interesting to see, because I remember back in the show watching it, like it was like, all right, he found 4 Chaos Emeralds, and he was sort of like, it was sort of like the power up when Imperfect Cell became Semi-Perfect Cell, and then he just got a big power boost, and everyone's just, oh my goodness, you're so powerful right now. It's like, yeah, imagine what it could be if I was perfect. That's sort of like what you got in the series, and so I just really enjoy that. I look forward to seeing that update when it comes. But yeah, this has been fun overall, and I've liked it for what it is. But the majority of my gameplay has been in more Salt and Sanctuary. Now, I thought I was going to be playing maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe do a couple things here and there. I actually ended up getting to near the end of the game, so nice. I said I'll go through, after I got through the Village of Smiles, I'll go to the Pitch Woods, which is pretty much just a forest area with a lot of archers and collapsing platforms and a bottomless pit. So I dealt with that. I went to the Sunken Deep, which is just a short area that you can where you have 2 bosses, and I think one of them is technically optional, but the other one is required to get one of the new abilities, which I think is it's the inverted brand, so that way you can reverse gravity and walk on ceilings and stuff, and do platform that way. So I did all that. Went into the next area, which was the Castle of Storms. I was like, this shouldn't be too bad, so I took care of that. Went to the Red Hall of Cages. That was a bit of a maze to get through, trying to figure out where to go. But eventually I went to that and beat the Tree of Men, which you should be seeing at some points in the clip. I died to the boss once just because it's annoying trying to get through him at his second phase, just because you can... The first half of the battle is just hitting the enemies that are attached to him, but the second phase, you have to actually hit his glowing orb in his head, and that is a bit of a pain to get to. So beat him on the second try. Funny thing though is I died immediately after because I was trying to jump across a platform, but I missed and I died. But fortunately, I didn't have to worry about losing all of my salt. Otherwise, that would have been very salty for me. But easily reclaimed that. So after that, I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss the one NPC questline that I was working for, because that was part of the achievement I was working for. So I was following a guide, trying to get through that. And so went through that. Also was trying to figure out where to go, or where to get to I needed to go, because I kept backtracking several different ways. I couldn't figure out where the area was supposed to be. The guide said to go go right of one of the sanctuaries. I did that, but then later on I realized I didn't go right far enough. If I kept going, I would have reached the next area. So I did that, made more progress. I think that was the Dome of the Forgotten. I beat that area, then did I can't remember what the other areas, but I kept going, and there was one point where, I was going to fight a boss, and I said, okay, I could fight this boss, and I should be able to win. However, I don't think I have enough potions left over. So I went back, and in the midst of trying to go back to the sanctuary I was at before, I thought, maybe I can find a shortcut. So I went to a shortcut, I jumped, I missed a platform and fell, and thought, oh, I'm gonna die from this, aren't I? I didn't die. However, I landed right in the arena of another boss. Now, fortunately, this boss is one of the easier bosses. I'll put it like that. Okay. The attacks are simple, and even in the second phase, which I don't even know if there is one based on how the boss fought, it was still very simple. So I was able to beat the boss easily first try. Went back to the sanctuary I was supposed to go to though, and essentially, I pretty much cut through stuff I wasn't supposed to cut through, because you're supposed to get to that boss by getting an ability that you get after the boss I was supposed to fight before. But I essentially unlocked a shortcut though, because after I beat that boss, I was able to open a gate and just essentially catch an elevator up to the area right before the other boss. So that worked out pretty well. Eventually I kept going. I saw the one NPC I needed to meet. I did his quest line, and I went back a couple other times, and I finally completed his quest line. Now, one thing that I wish I had recorded, but unfortunately, I thought it wasn't going to happen. There's a boss that you face at one area called the Witch of the Lake, and she's notorious for how much damage she can deal to people who aren't magic or arcane resistant. Because she has an attack that is essentially just a Gatling gun of magic orbs that hit you, and you can dodge them in her first phase. However, in the second phase, they home in on you. So the problem with that is my armor is not that magic resistant, so it will shred through me easily. And that's why it's recommended to use this one shield called an Ashen Effigy, which has high arcane resistance. So if you can use tower shields, you're good to go. And I did do that when I first played the game, I think maybe the first 2 times, but this time I decided, you know what, I want to go all out as my build, so I want to see if I could actually find a way to beat her without using the shield. Also required me to actually also increase my equip load so I could actually hold both the shield and my sword. So I tried it the first time, and I died second phase. Second time, I tried to fight her. I was able to drink enough of a potion ahead of time so that way my health would go up as I'm taking damage. And fortunately, I was lucky enough that she only did that attack 1 time, and I was able to just essentially bait her into using other attacks so that way I didn't have to deal with that, and I beat her the second time. So it is possible to beat her without the shield for someone who's weak to magic, but it's not necessarily recommended to do that.
Yeah.
But after that, I cleared the last few areas, and now I'm at the final area, and I just took a break from that and said, I will make sure that I record this for the following week, so
Nice.
to get footage. So that's where I am with that, and yeah, that is everything that I've been playing.
All right. Well, let's see here. Let me start off with a couple things. So, first of all, with Salt and Sanctuary, I definitely like every time I watch this, I'm just like, I want to play this game. But I'm also, trying to resist the temptation as much as possible to start up another, new Souls game, especially since I said that I was going to try to finish a Souls game that I've already been working on before I start a new one. And there was also like I had gotten a Souls-like action RPG through one of the cheap Fanatical game bundles that looked pretty fun, and thankfully I read some reviews of what people were saying, and they said that it doesn't perform well. So I mean that it runs really poorly. So it's one of those things that help me to resist the temptation a bit more and stick to what I've been playing, but I'll get to that here in a minute. But yeah, Salt and Sanctuary looks really good, and I definitely want to check that out. I think that's kind of it's pretty high on my list of new to me Souls-likes that I want to check out. Especially because Moonscars was just, it was so mixed. I loved the art style, and I thought the music was really good, and there were a lot of things I really liked about the game, but of course it just ultimately kind of fell short both on the Souls and the Metroidvania side. It just wasn't really great at either one of those. So anyway, going back to what you've been playing, I have to ask, with Super Mario Bros. Z, does the TV show have the announcer, "Last time on Super Mario Bros. Z"? Does it have that?
No, it doesn't. And that's definitely something they could have added in, because in the main menu, it is kind of also reminiscent of the Super Mario Bros. Z intro, which was also trying to which actually was a replication of the Dragon Ball Z intro.
Oh man.
Just they tried to model the characters the way that it actually mimicked the movements of all the characters in Super Mario Bros. Z. So they should have added that in there. And I mean, I feel like if it wasn't for the reason of maybe copyright reasons, they probably would have added in some of the music that they had used, which would have been also from from the series. Although in the web series, they did actually have Last Time on Super Mario Bros. Z, and they ended each episode in the same style with the same music. It was
nice.
Will this happen? Find out next time on Super Mario Brothers. I mean, it was all text-based, but you could still hear the narrator saying those words.
Nice. Very cool. Yeah, it looks pretty fun. I'm not into fighting games, but I love the ways that it very clearly mimics Dragon Ball Z and everything. It's just fantastic. So good stuff. All right, well, you thought that your list was light. I've played one game, period, over the past week or so. Hades 2. So this the footage that's playing is actually just a run I did this evening, which surprisingly was not actually a great run. I mean, I did finish it, but like I literally was down to 16 health at the very end, and I was very surprised that I actually managed to survive. But what was even more surprising is that because the build that I had was like, well, I should say perks aside, was similar to builds I've done in the past where I've gotten through the last fight without any real problems. But this time I was like, I was basically one to two hits away from dying, depending on, you know, how I got hit. I just barely finished that run. But anyway, so I have rolled credits on Hades 2. So I got the initial story ending. I have not gotten the epilogue. I still have quite a ways to go for that. Basically lots of grinding, building up some relationships. It's like a set of like, I think there's 6 or 7 people that I have to level up, and I think I've gotten 2 of them done. But there's really so much I could say about this game. I fully maintain that this is for 2025 games. This was my number 2 game of the year. And as an overall, like, for all the games I played in 2025, definitely this is my number 3 overall. But it really is an absolutely stellar game. It took me quite a while to actually beat Kronos initially. And I did get that first time beating him recorded, but it was on the Steam Deck and I had it at 16 by 10 aspect ratio. So it's ended up being a square image. I just decided instead to record a separate run this evening on my desktop. But yeah, it took quite a few tries. What actually really made the difference for me, well, I should say, first of all, I was, you can, of course, get Death Defiance eventually. And in this game, the way it's set up is you have a series of Arcana cards that have different perks attached to them. And then you still pick up the individual boons per run, you know, with different perks attached to those. Now, the Death Defiance, you get a specific card that has that, and then all the cards you can level up with certain materials. Death Defiance, you can do it up to 3 of them. Plus, then you also have Skelly-related artifact, not artifact, I can't remember what they're called, but, you know, the things that are in the case that you equip that could give you an additional Death Defiance. So my first time actually beating Kronos, I was able to do it with that, you know, having multiple instances of Death Defiance. And that's really how I've always played the game, at least with the first one, and with this one is taking advantage of that because I'm just not very skilled. But then I get the chance, I think actually a little bit before I beat Kronos, but a chance to go into the overworld. And I won't get into exactly, you know, how you are able to get up there, but initially when you go up there, you die very quickly. Like, your health starts draining shortly after you get up there. You basically can, at most, pick up a few materials like plants and that sort of thing that are on the ground before you die. And there's just nothing you can do about that initially. Then you gain a way to be able to get up to the surface and go up to Mount Olympus and so on from there. Well, you go through a couple lower layers and then up to Mount Olympus, and then you have like the very top Mount Olympus where you have the final fight of the whole overworld thing. And my initial runs, I could not make progress. Like, at best, I was getting to the second of the four. of the 4 boss fights. So the third of the four boss fights. And then there was a run that like I managed the first time that I beat the third boss, I made it all the way to the fourth boss. I got him really close to beating him. And then he killed me. And then after that, I was having a hard time getting back up there. So I was looking online for some tips, some things I could do differently. The suggestion that I was given is one of the Arcana cards is called Strength, the Strength Arcana. And that one, if you have no Death Defiance active, it gives you, in its fully upgraded form, 40% damage resistance, and then you deal an additional 20% damage against the enemies. But, of course, you can't be revived, so if you die, you're dead. That's it. But some people were saying that this is one situation where it's actually better to have Death Defiance turned off and just use the Strength Arcana because you're dealing a lot more damage and you're taking less damage. And as well as giving some ideas of different different types of perks that are useful to have, like elements related to being able to use fire and ice, to be able to have effects related to those and various other things like that. And so I decided to try it, and sure enough, it made a humongous difference. Like, I had no problems getting to the top and finishing it out. And after that, I basically have not been using Death Defiance. The only time I've used Death Defiance was there's one particular card that you can use that's related to Hades himself. I can't remember the name of it, but you can only activate it. It's a card that automatically activates if you use 3 or fewer other cards. And every time you beat a boss, it will randomly activate 4 of the cards in the Arcana, which means it can do up to 12. No. Yeah, up to 12 different cards that it can activate in addition to the 3 the 4 including Hades that you already have activated. Which means that basically it can activate the card that gives you Death Defiance. And that was like the only time that I've used Death Defiance since then. It was just when it activated it for me randomly. But the rest of the time I've been doing it without Death Defiance, and it just makes a huge difference because I'm dealing a lot more damage. I'm taking a lot less damage. And between that and God mode, which I may end up turning off at some point, I'm not really having too much difficulty, but I'm still having a lot of fun, giving me the opportunity to get through both the overworld and the underworld a lot more easily. And I've done some of the equivalent to heat increases, but not very much of it because I haven't been super focused on that. Especially because of the fact that this one, unlike the first game, so the first game, like, in order to be able to get the Titan's blood that you need in order to upgrade your different weapons, the different aspects of the different weapons, once you've cleared that boss with the weapon type, unless you increase the heat level, you can't actually or use a different type of weapon, you can't get Titan's blood again from that boss. And so this one doesn't do that, because for one, it doesn't have Titan's blood. It has just a different type of item for each boss that you get for clearing that boss. And the items that you get for clearing the boss, you get it every single time you run it. So it doesn't matter whether you've increased the heat equivalent or not. So that does make, of course, these different items are not as essential as the Titan's blood was, because the Titan's blood was something like you had to have a bunch of them for every upgrade. The higher you upgrade the level of a weapon, the more of it you need. And in this case, that's not as much the case. You do need other types of resources, but none of them are limited in that same way. They're still not necessarily easy to get in a lot of cases, but they are less limited less limited than Titan's Blood. Or at least they're not as difficult to get as Titan's Blood because of the fact that you don't have to increase the heat level in order to get those resources. So, yeah. But probably, I don't know. I haven't really decided what I'm doing from that standpoint. But at this point, I have like, I think altogether about 13 or 14 clears of Chronos, and then I want to say 10 for the overworld. Something like that. I did another run before we recorded. I mean, I finished probably around like 7:30 or something. But let me think here. You know, the story's been great, the music's been great as expected. Just there's a lot of variety to the different types of weapons that you get, and then, you know, once you unlock the different aspects, that adds even more variety. I've kind of found that there are like one or two for each weapon that I like better than others. But for the most part, like, I have the strategies down really well for each of the bosses. Chronos sometimes can give me a little bit of trouble, but really the only time he gives me trouble is if I stupidly forget to move out of the way for some of his one-hit kill attacks. And there were a couple of runs, like, when I was at the point where basically I needed to do what was going to be the essentially final confrontation against Chronos. I mean, it's not like really the final, but it's the last one that was required for the story, or for you know, for rolling credits. I accidentally I forgot to move. The first time I forgot to move out of something that I knew was a one-hit kill thing. I just didn't move. And the second time I was standing right next to him when he was about to do his one-hit kill move and wasn't even thinking about the fact that I would do that. And of course, because I had no revives, there was no way for me to do that. But yeah, so I'll mention the different weapons you get in this game. And now I can't remember the names of them exactly, but I can tell you what they are. So you start with the staff, and then you also have the dagger and sickle. So the staff is, of course, long range. You're firing magic, firing bolts. You can charge up the attacks, and then it uses like magic power to do the different attacks for the charged versions. And then there's the dagger and sickle that basically, I mean, this is kind of a repeat of what I've already talked about last week, but that one's much more close range with the dagger attacks, and then the sickle is more like throwing it like a boomerang, you're vertically in front of you, you know, straight ahead of you, and it boomerangs back to you. And then you have the torch things that basically you're like continuously throwing fireballs at them. Then you have, trying to think through the different things. You know, there's a weapon I'm forgetting about in the middle here. I don't know why I'm spacing about it, but okay, I can't remember. Oh, the axe. The axe, which is very much close range more than anything else. That it does have a long range, powered up attack where it just like fires off a blast chain forward. And then there's there's like a skull that you basically fire off, and it has like 4 rounds in it, and then you have to charge forward in order to be able to pick up the skulls to replenish your ammo, essentially. And there are perks that make it so that the skulls automatically return to you, which is super nice when you can get that, but unfortunately, because of the fact that it's specifically the Daedalus hammer that gives you that, and that's entirely randomized, you're not going to get it every time. And then there's the last thing is basically like a jetpack. It's like something made by Hephaestus that gives you wings that are like a jetpack, and then like powered fists, and you punch and you fire missiles. So It's pretty cool, but yeah, like all of the weapons have obviously pluses and minuses. I think surprisingly, the staff has become my least favorite of the weapons, which is funny because initially it was the only one I actually liked, and then like the more I've used all the different ones, the staff is definitely my least favorite, probably because it's the slowest in terms of being able to hit enemies. I mean, like, it has really good range and you can hit a lot of enemies at once, but more so if you charge it up, or if you get for the special, you can get a perk that makes it so that the special fires off and it bounces off of multiple enemies. But you don't get it every time, obviously. So, trying to think of what else. So, of course, you have both Underworld and Overworld. Then you also have some additional challenges from like a special stone that Chaos has there that allows you to do like just set challenges that you have a specific weapon. I mean, you start with a specific weapon and like a couple of specific perks, specific level of like health and magic, and then you still build up stats from there as much as possible. But then it also has like certain Arcana cards that are active in those things, and so just different ways to handle things. You get to go around from early on in the game with an animal familiar. So basically just like a little Pokemon thing that follows you around and gives some kind of benefit, but then also, does some stuff for you, will attack enemies or block attacks. One of them gives you an instance of Death Defiance. Yeah. Oh, the dog, which is the one I've been using the majority of the game, can occasionally dig up either health or magic power restoration items. So then that can be helpful. I mean, it doesn't happen super often, but when it does, it's like, yeah, that's very helpful. So, but yeah, the game is amazing. I'm planning to stick with it until I get the epilogue. I don't know how long that's going to take, because I have quite a bit to do with that. But I've thought about potentially putting it down and then just like working on towards the epilogue little by little. But I also think that maybe since I'm still enjoying myself, I might as well just stick with it. Especially because this one definitely has a bit more options of things you can do, instead of having it just being the run to Hades with some variations therein. You have two different things plus the extra thing that has a bunch of random challenges. So it's all good stuff. But that's basically everything I have to say.
Okay, so I've been writing down a list of questions and stuff, because there's definitely been a lot that you've told me that's been very interesting. So I guess, well, I'm trying to figure out where even to begin right now. So you mentioned when you were talking about Death Defiance and getting an artifact kind of like from Skelly. Is there a Skelly-like character in this game?
Oh yeah, he
Wonderful.
doesn't look exactly the same, but he is the same character without question. I forgot to mention, there's with the different types of equipable artifact things. There's one that I've been using for a long time that's also super helpful, and it's one that basically makes it so that when you go into a boss fight, it automatically knocks off 15% of their health. So that's the one I've been using coupled with all the other stuff. But yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
And one other thing I'll mention with that, one of the Arcana cards gives you the benefit that the whatever the acorn thing was that you got in Hades 1 that made it so that when you went into boss fights, it would nullify 3 instances of damage the first 3 hits. So you can have that card active rather than having to have an accessory equipped in order to get that benefit. So that's very helpful.
That's very helpful. Yeah, it's definitely great. A couple questions about the overworld, especially with regards to health. Now I know you initially said that when you first go there, your health drains, and you have to get items to eventually, get some sort of ability or to, I guess, mitigate that. So does it just slow down the health draining, or is it
No,
completely nullified?
it stops it completely.
Okay.
Because basically the health draining is essentially just the same curse that like Zagreus faced, except that instead of it being like he just eventually just dies, in her case it's like she can't really breathe very well, and then it doesn't take long before she just dies. I would be very curious as to whether or not it's theoretically possible to clear it just by getting enough healing stuff, but I'm pretty sure that the game makes it like to where it's not actually possible to do. With at least without the necessary enchantment thing that makes it possible.
Yeah, because I was gonna ask you as a follow-up question then, if it didn't stop it completely, I'll say, so does it drain while you're in Olympus too? And like I would think that would be insane to have your health drain while you're fighting all these enemies and bosses in a whole other arena. I mean, granted, there was a heat in the first game that drained your health slowly, correct? Or am I incorrect?
There might be. I never used it though. If there was, I wouldn't doubt it. Though.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Because, I definitely would have avoided that one. Even if I had to bump up other things, I would have just avoided that one like the plague. And I guess, well, there are sort of two questions related to my next question, then following up. Based on what you said then about Titan Blood, are heat runs completely necessary then for anything, or
I don't
are there
think
any
they
achievements
are.
related?
Well, I would imagine that there are achievements, because kind of like how the first game has achievements for completing with a certain heat level in order to get the things that Skelly has under a sheet or whatever. There are achievements tied to that in this game as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. It's like, if there isn't really too much of an incentive to do heat runs, I was just wondering, what would be the goal then? I mean, to really incentivize people, but that makes sense then. That there would be other things you can get then, since you can't get Titan Blood. And then I guess also in regard with what you said about the Strength Arcana and how it's useful over Death Defiance, would you say that it's useful in a heat run rather than using Death Defiance, or do you think
I think it still would be, because the major thing is that you really are reducing the damage you're taking and increasing the damage you're dealing, and I think that's going to be helpful no matter what you're running. The couple times I did a heat thing, I think I only did like a level 1 heat, because there wasn't really any benefit to doing more than that initially. It said heat level exceeded, or the equivalent, since I hadn't completed anything with the lower level yet. But yeah.
Okay. And then my last question, just because I was curious with how this works. So with the dog familiar, are the digs random as far as when it happens, or is it like a timed thing?
It's random.
Okay.
I think it's like maybe like 10 or 15% of the time it'll dig something up. Kind of similar to how like you'd have the boon in Hades 1 that made it so that either enemies would randomly drop healing items, or you'd randomly find them in pots, except the fact that it's less frequent than that, and it also lasts the entire time instead of it being just like, oh, this number of encounters.
Okay. Well, you talking about this game over the past few weeks has really made me think I should get the game and play it. Because I really enjoyed Hades 1. And I was like, and when I heard about Hades 2 coming, and especially since it wasn't going to be an Epic Store exclusive this time around, or at least a temporary one, I thought, maybe I should get it. But I was like, I've already got so much in my backlog right now. But I'm just like,
Yeah.
I should probably go ahead and play that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I would say finish the game you're working on at least before you grab Hades 2, because, like you said, one of your goals this year was to not do as much of the, getting sidetracked all the time. And this one's a good one to get sidetracked with, but I still think it's better like to just be your focus without you being in the middle of a game that you have been actively playing. I'm like right now I'm at I think around 50 hours altogether in the game, but I mean I also was off work for quite a while, so I put a lot of time in over those days that I was off, and then over the weekend, and a lot of time in my off time too. It's just I've been playing this game a ton.
Okay. I think that's everything I have.
All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention about this game. Yeah, I one thing I will say is that there is a surprise boss fight that I've only encountered once. That I'm not going to say what it is, but it was definitely like, dang it, I wanted to win that fight, but I did not have the right build for it. It was like early on in a run that I came across it. I was basically like the perks I was basically just picking stuff that was prophesied instead of focusing as much on trying to get the perfect build, because it's just like, I can manage getting through it. And because of that boss fight, which is optional to go into in the first place, I ended up ending my run very early because I died in that. So, but yeah. All right. Good stuff. Well, this week we're back into actually talking about some news, and some of it is older stuff that's, from 2 to 3 weeks ago, but because of the fact that we didn't talk about news for a bit, it's a good time to talk about some of these things. So, one of the first stories that I want to talk about, because we're both obviously big fans of Expedition 33, is that the Indie Game Awards has revoked Expedition 33, disqualified it from being able to get Game of the Year award because of the fact that it supposedly used generative AI. Now, as far as how exactly they used it, that wasn't really made clear. It didn't seem that there was any indication that the Indie Game Awards people actually asked them how much it was used, what it was used for, anything like that. Basically, they just saw that the developers had said, we used a little bit of AI and didn't research it any further. Some clarification came about sometime after the fact, where basically the developers, let me just read what specifically they said. So this is a Polygon article, and as much as I despise Polygon, they were the one website I was finding that actually covered this part of the story. But they said that game director Guillaume Broche clarified some of the misinformation surrounding the studio and reiterated what other Sandfall developers have said about generative AI usage during interviews held earlier in the year. Transcription of the Q&A comes courtesy of gaming content creator Sushi, who is one of the handful of influencers who were present at the session. Twitch streamer Crisco prefaced his question by recounting the storm surrounding Baldur's Gate 3 developer Larian Studios' admission about using generative AI during game development. Crisco inquired, to what extent was generative AI used in Clair Obscur? How was it beneficial, and how do you plan to use it in the future? Everything in the game is human-made, Broche responded. When AI first came out in 2022, we'd already started on the game. It was just a new tool. We tried it. We didn't like it at all. It felt wrong. He went on to note that the studio did experiment with using AI specifically to cover up textures that the studio had missed, but that it was an extremely brief dalliance. We took it out as soon as we found it, Brosh said. But yeah, concept art, voice actors, everything is human made. And basically from there, he just reiterated that in the future, they are not, that they firmly believe in everything being entirely human made, and that they don't want to use AI in the future. But some other clarifications that came up is that apparently in this case, it was not even that they actually had AI used for the creation of the game. They basically just used it for some placeholder textures, and that those placeholder textures were actually removed about 5 days. I mean, they got missed in QA, were removed like 5 days after. And it was just a couple of things like, I think someone said something about lamp posts and maybe a couple other things where it didn't affect the game at all. And the fact that they removed it, 5 days later shows that it probably was just something that got missed in QA and it was fixed. But all that being said, what are your thoughts?
So initially when this whole debacle came out with the whole AI and Clear Obscure Sandfall, I was really nervous because, I really did not want to have to hear that there was AI, because I was just going to be, I did not know how I would react to that if they were like, yeah, we use AI in this game and we did this, and this. And so I was really hesitant and skeptical. But of course, as you mentioned, that what happened was, they had just used it as a placeholder. And really, I think Oh No, It's Alex also covered this in one of his videos, and he said that what it actually was is it wasn't even something that they technically did. It was just like a texture that was provided by the Unreal Engine software program and whatnot. So essentially, it's just like textures that are essentially already made. They just happen to be AI generated, but they're supplied by Unreal Engine. So it's not like the fact like they were like saying, okay, AI, go create us a flag. I mean, not a flagpole, a lamppost, and we'll add it in here and stuff like that. No, it's something that was already in the tools that were there, and they just like added it in there, and we're going to replace it later, as you said. And also he showed, I think there were like a couple posters like in Lumiere, and those were just like you said, they were replaced shortly after, and unless you looked, you weren't really gonna see them. So I'm glad that it wasn't what I thought it could have been, or even anywhere close to what people sort of made it think it was going to be. It was really just them just using a placeholder tool that they didn't even generate themselves or have generated. They just took a tool, sort of like a pre-rendered asset that Unreal Engine also supplies as well. So it's like using one of those assets, put it in there, but forgot to remove it. So I mean, due to that, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I do like that they, sort of clarified things. They even said that when they used it, they didn't even like it and it felt wrong. And, they really believe in that human effort behind their projects, which I think is great, because, sure, you can do a lot of things with AI, but you also are going to lose some of the soul that is in a human-made effort. Sure, it can do a great job at mimicking, the efforts that a human will put into it, but there still is that spark that's missing, that human spark that's there. So I'm glad this is a nothing burger, but at the same time, also, I don't know when or how soon after this was clarified. I think because of what actually happened, Sandfall shouldn't have been disqualified from the Indie Game Awards. Like, I don't think... It's not like they were going and, creating their own assets or anything like that. It's out there saying, all right, cool, we're going to use AI to, create Renoir's suit, or we're not going to go and, use AI to generate Esquier. It's like, no, it was like just an asset, an already constructed asset that was available to use, and they just placed it in there, and that's it. And also, I think the one thing also is when they tried AI, it was back in 2022, so that was way before everything that we know and everything that has happened since AI has gone full blown with things. So
Right.
it's not like they came out this year and said, "Hey, we're gonna try using AI." It's like, okay, it was back when it was in its infancy and early adoption.
Right.
People were still like curious about it. They're like, okay, what's this AI thing and stuff? I mean, of course the idea of AI isn't new, but
Yeah.
just it being available was new. So everyone had some curiosity about it. So I don't think it was wrong that they tried it out at the time. So I think for that reason, again, it's also not a reason to necessarily disqualify them for it. So were they snubbed? I think so. But at the same time, I'm satisfied. They still won Game of the Year. They still swept. They swept the Orange Box Podcast Award. So you know what? They win in my heart. Okay. So yeah. But I am glad though, like I said, that Sandfall is taking, the initiative of saying we're not going to focus on AI. We're just going to focus on our team, the skills that our members have, and working together to make an excellent product. So you know what, Sandfall, you've got me day one when the next Clear Obscure game drops.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the reality is when you look at the game, the only people who actually really bought this full bore were the people who already just had a vendetta against the game. That they could call it Unreal 5 engine slop. That they didn't play the game. They knew nothing about it. They basically just took a look at it and they're like, "Oh, it's not original. It's it's copying all these other things. It's like Persona." Well, it's obviously it's inspired by Persona. It's inspired by Persona and Final Fantasy and Dark Souls and all sorts of other things. It's like they made that obvious. It was intended to be inspired by these other things. But when you look at this, especially character designs and everything else, it's very clear when you compare this to AI generated stuff, there's just a huge difference. The AI generated stuff, a lot of times it's in some ways it's almost too realistic or too perfect, I guess you could say, but then it's also not, because I'll watch some of these AI generated concept of a Final Fantasy IV remake or a Final Fantasy VI remake or Final Fantasy VIII remake, or some of the fake leak stuff from Avengers Doomsday, where they have the stuff, and there's always some inconsistencies in how the characters look. They'll look really good in one scene, then they'll look slightly different in the next scene, and it's just to where it's really obvious that it's AI generated. There was also one I saw that was a Chrono Trigger remake, and for the most part, it was really cool looking, as far as it felt basically they took the Dragon Quest 12, where they did of course it's very clearly Akira Toriyama's style, which is Chrono Trigger also all the art was done by Akira Toriyama, and they took that kind of style and they put it into essentially a game, but then they had all sorts of weird stuff otherwise that just made it not quite right. And it's just it's kind of this weird gut feeling that you get when you see enough of this stuff. And it's come a long way from where it was in 2022. 2022, the image generation was nightmarish sometimes. It was horrifying, the kind of stuff that it was putting out. But over time, it's gotten better and better and better, and it's gotten really good. But it's not like Expedition 33. It's not really, at least the vast majority of games. There's just this kind of this difficulty to explain the difference between something that's AI generated and something that's not. And Expedition 33, along with a lot of other games, it's very clear that it's all made by people. Now, yes, they use some placeholder assets from Unreal Engine, okay, and then they fixed it. They replaced it because it just got missed initially. I truly firmly believe the only people who actually believed this was completely legit, like that they were actually using AI to make the game or to design the characters or what have you, I really believe those people just already had a vendetta against the game, and it had nothing to do with actually looking at the game, playing the game, anything like that. They just made up their minds ahead of time, and they will believe any negative press because it makes them feel better about having the contrary opinion. And some people, of course, just want to be contrarian, and that's the whole reason why they reject it in the first place. It's just like, it has to be bad because everybody likes it. I mean, never mind the fact that some of these same people like the games that everybody likes, and then they're like, well, I liked it first. Or, on the one hand, they'll argue, everybody likes it, therefore it must be an industry plant. And then when it's something that they like, they'll be like, well, it's because it's great. And they may be right. Maybe the thing they like is great. But that doesn't mean this other thing isn't also great. It's just, for whatever reason, you don't like it. Like, obviously you have certain fanboys, particularly on the Nintendo side. Well, a particular Nintendo fanboy who's a psychopath anyway, but who would continuously just say all sorts of negative stuff about, well, any game that's not a Nintendo game. And say that, oh, it's not as good as all these Nintendo games. They'll never beat Nintendo. It's just like, why can't you just be a human being for a change? Like, be a rational human being. Anyway. Yeah. I don't think I have anything more to say.
Same here.
All right. You want to talk about this reported price increase for the 5090?
Oh boy. So, as what we mentioned near the end of last year, prices for GPUs, NVIDIA and AMD were going to rise across the board. And that has happened so far. I know that at least I think some of the 50 cards have had an increased price. I know that the AMD's 9070 XT and 9060, both 9060 for variants, are also, I think, about between $20 to $30 more expensive. But if you thought that was bad, supposedly the RTX 5090 is going to be $5,000 or near $5,000 this year, according to rumor. Now, I do want to clarify that recently, I saw several posts saying that, the card was already 5,000 or near 5,000, but that was because of third-party sellers selling stuff on like Newegg and stuff like that. This, however, is completely different. So if you think this is what we're talking about, no, that's not it at all. So here is an article from Insider Gaming, and their source is coming from Newsys, which is a South Korean outlet. And according to reports that came there, the RTX 5090 is going to rise from $1,999 MSRP at launch to as much as $5,000 in 2026. And here is here's a translation from the original report. Both companies, referring to AMD and NVIDIA, are reportedly planning to continue raising GPU prices every month going forward. It's highly likely that the price increases will extend across their entire product lineup, encompassing not only consumer GPUs, but also GPUs for AI data centers and servers. And then also said that the average proportion of memory in the overall GPU manufacturing costs has recently exceeded 80%. So, VRAM, it costs more than 8% now than it has before. And this is just going to keep on occurring. And then also they add that Insider Gaming adds that the situation is having an impact on all areas of technology, and research concerns surface regarding the development of the PlayStation 6, the cell phone space, and RAM prices just being an all-time high from 2025. I have several of different thoughts on everything across the board, but what do you have to say about this topic here?
Well, I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, I have some serious doubts that this report is accurate because that is a massive increase in price. I mean, if my math is correct, which it should be, sometimes I get this confused in my brain. So that would be the price of $5,000 would be 250% of the original price, which would mean it's a 150% price increase. Assuming my math is correct, and sometimes I get that mixed up in my brain with how to explain that. But the point is that it's going up by more. It's going up to more than double the price. So, it's a massive increase in price, going from $2,000 to $5,000. More than doubling, and I cannot imagine that it's actually going to go up that much. So I'm taking this with a grain of salt, and I don't really know anything about this news outlet, so I don't know how reliable they've been in the past. I don't know how much of what they're saying. I don't know if what they're saying is that it's actually going to be a price increase from Nvidia, or if it's more like they expect the prices to go up because of all the costs and everything, and that resellers might sell them for that much money. I'm guessing it's more the former than the latter, but I have some skepticism. However, on the flip side, something that I thought about that I hadn't thought about before is that this could actually be possible if basically Nvidia is trying to sell these to the big companies that are doing stuff with AI, because that's really where the 5090 is going to be most useful because of all the AI processing that it has specifically for AI, and because of the fact that really, apart from people who spend more than they should anyway, the average consumer does not need a 5090. Well, the fact is that really, unless you're making a bunch of AI animations and that sort of thing, you don't need a 5090. You just don't. As it is, my 7900 XTX, I know that it wasn't needed. Now, I didn't spend anywhere near that much money on it. I spent $700 on it, which is significantly less. It's also older, doesn't have the AI cores and stuff as part of the card. So, but it was definitely overkill. And I wanted my upgrade to feel like an actual upgrade. And in hindsight, yeah, 9070 XT would have been an actual upgrade. But it's just, I look at the numbers and I'm like, 12 gigs to 16 gigs, that doesn't feel like enough of an upgrade, whereas 12 gigs to 24 gigs feels like a significant upgrade. And it definitely was. It was just overkill. Now, in light of the fact that prices are going up, I'm glad I bought it. I don't have any regrets buying it. And because I, didn't spend a lot of money on it, it was worth it. But at the same time, it's also been complete overkill. It wasn't needed. 16 would have been fine and would have still done extremely well. But going back to the main topic, the idea of this going up is just insane. I don't think anybody needs a 5090, and I don't know if the price of the 5090 going up means also all the cheaper cards are going to be going up a lot, or if they're just going to be going up a little bit. Because if it's like $100 difference, okay, that's really not that significant. It's more than people should be spending, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a huge deal. But from 2,000 to 5,000 is a huge deal. And whether or not console people want to believe it, if the prices go up like that for graphics cards, for PC parts, the consoles are going up in price too. Plain and simple. There's no way to avoid it, and it's not a story we're specifically talking about, but there is the rumor that the consoles are going to be delayed because of the fact that they want to, because of all the current price increases and how expensive everything is, and they don't want to release them in this current market. Which who knows how long it'll take before there's enough manufacturing to keep up with the demand to where they can actually lower the prices back to normal levels, or if that'll happen. But yeah, TLDL, I think this could be real, but I also think it's important to take it with a grain of salt, and we'll just wait and see if that actually happens.
All right. So I mean, there are multiple layers to this, and it's really just hard for me to figure out where to like tackle this from, because I am in a camp where I can believe this to be true. I mean, for one thing, we have had prices go up, and I believe that they probably will go up more. On the other hand, well, I'm also, well, I don't think this has been confirmed, but has been rumored is that Nvidia is, possibly going to withhold RAM or VRAM from their partner manufacturers. So, like your Gigabyte, your MSI, your Zotac, Asus, all of them, they'll have to supply their own VRAM. They'll give them the GPU itself, the die, but not the VRAM. So, if that's true, it's very possible that Nvidia would probably do something like this as well. Additionally, with, like you said, Nvidia is trying to go into the AI data centers, and they're very much targeting this toward them. Now, I think Nvidia sort of wants to have its cake and eat it too, and this is something that they've been doing for a while, because technically this isn't a 50 series card. Technically this should be branded as a Titan card, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They've been doing that since the 30 series. People were saying that the 3090 technically wasn't even a regular flagship card. Like, 38 should have just been the flagship, and the 39 should have just been a Titan card, because it's really just overkill for what normal people need. And it's much better. I mean, you can definitely game and get a whole lot of performance out of that card, don't get me wrong, but it's better suited if you're doing production work and stuff like that. So so like starting with the 3090 and then the 4090, 5090, those should have just been cards that targeted, they should have just been branded as Titan cards. Don't know why they didn't do it, but that's probably what they should have just done anyway, especially considering how expensive they are in general too. And the Titan cards were also expensive, so I feel like that's another reason why they shouldn't have branded that the way. But I guess Nvidia decided, hey, we can show this to gamers and say, do you want even more performance? Spend like $500 more over the 3080 and get this card. And then the 4090 came around. I don't remember how much that was, but it's probably like spend $600 to $700 more and get the 4090, and then with the with the 5090 spend $1,000 more and get the 5090. And it's like, oh, that's really not great price to performance right there. Like, no, thank you. So, like I said, they should have just been branding it toward who their actual target market is, and I feel like that they are kind of doing that. They are trying to push this as an AI card, and because of that, I feel like they would raise the price of the GPU to $5,000 and say, hey, if you want to have GPUs for your markets, for your business and stuff like that, buy our cards. We have to charge you more. I mean, what else are you gonna do? Go to AMD? Who does that? But I do believe that is happening. On the other hand, though, if they do this, and if they are trying to target AI data centers and stuff like that, this move could come back to bite them in the butt. Because some companies are already starting to work on their own AI cards, and referred to as tensor processing unit. So essentially, they're GPUs that are specifically set and designed for AI and data centers. Like Alphabet, Google's owner, is using it, and so they've essentially shifted away from using NVIDIA's GPUs to using their own GPUs for their AI data centers. And so if, say Facebook, if, one of the other big companies decide, hey, you know what, we're going to go and develop our own GPUs so we don't have to pay as much, why?
Right.
Sure, they might not be as good as NVIDIA's GPUs, but if they're gonna be much cheaper and yet still have some type of efficiency, have some sort of relative performance that's decent enough, they might decide the same way as Google did. We're leaving. We've had enough of you trying to price gouge us.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna go ahead and make the switch, Nintendo Switch. So that's what they could happen, and because of that, the AI market, which is where NVIDIA is focusing all their efforts and concentration on, that's going to collapse on them. And then they'll be thinking, oh, well, what are we going to do? Our cash cow is gone, is leaving us. I mean, especially considering the fact that NVIDIA is, I don't remember exactly how this is functioning, but they're partnered with OpenAI and they're doing stuff with Microsoft and all this other stuff, and it's like, all right, you've invested so much into other companies which sure have invested in you, and it's creating this big bubble. But if something happens to pop anywhere in that bubble, you're gonna go down with the ship.
Right.
So that's what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket. But additionally, they're going to probably just scramble then for the next big thing. I mean, we saw this happen before. First, of course, it was gamers, and that was who their core audience was. But then they decided, hey, let's get into NFTs and cryptocurrencies. So we're going to sell to these guys. And now that market's gone, they're like, all right, now we're going to go to AI and data centers and stuff. We're going to sell to you guys now. So if/when AI bursts, they're just going to have to scramble for whatever the next big thing is and try to market to that. Could they try skirting back to gamers? Maybe, but that would probably only happen if there's no other new innovation for them to turn toward.
Right.
So, I think it could happen, but as far as them raising prices, but if they do, that could complicate them in the future. So while in the short term, it might be beneficial for them, but the long term, they're probably going to burn bridges. Now, like you said, with RAM prices going up, and that's another thing too, is which makes matters worse, is initially when I heard about OpenAI buying up 40% of the RAM. The crazy thing is, I thought they just bought it up and automatically put them in whatever data centers and stuff or AI things they were doing. The worst part is they can't even use that RAM because it hasn't been processed.
Right.
They bought the wafers, but there's nothing to actually do with them. So I think you're hoarding that stuff and you can't even use it. So everyone has a problem with a shortage, all because you decided to make sure no one else could buy it, which I think is just extreme, pure gluttonous greed at its most rotten core. In a similar vein, Microsoft has tons of GPUs that they can't use because the data centers aren't built yet. So it's like, all this stuff is going on, and people are buying up everything, but they can't even use it. So it's like, all right. But back as far as with the gaming though related stuff, indirectly because it's Nvidia, I even wonder if stuff like, well, I mean because it's Nvidia, I wonder if like the Nintendo Switch 2 will be impacted. And
Yeah.
I mean, actually no, can't remember. Oh no, I can't remember when, where, or how I saw this, but the rising prices of RAM has impacted Nintendo, where I can't remember what the percentage is, but they took a big hit in their last quarterly report.
Oh yeah. It was
And,
like 20 billion something like that.
Yeah, because of that. And if Nvidia is going to pull the same type of tactics with Nintendo that they're possibly pulling or going to pull with everyone else, could that mean the Switch 2 raises in price because Nintendo has to pay more and to manufacture the units? I mean, granted, Nintendo so far has been very good with manufacturing units and getting them out, and supply hasn't been an issue. But if prices do go up more and Nvidia charges more, could the Switch 2 maybe go up by $50 in, say, a year or two? That is a scary thing to think about.
Yeah.
Considering the fact that the console just came out this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely believe that the PlayStation 6 could be delayed. And the whatever they named the next Xbox console, definitely could be delayed. And I even feel like, unfortunately, the Steam Machine might even be delayed. Originally was supposed to come out this, first quarter 2026. It might be bumped back to the second quarter, maybe even the third quarter, because we haven't heard anything yet from Valve. I mean, granted, they could still be waiting, or they might have a date already set to announce everything, but the year's already started, and before you know it, we'll be through that first quarter quickly. So
yeah,
I don't know. I guess one last thing directly regards to Nvidia, which makes me very, which also makes me think that maybe they might raise the price of the 5090. I don't know how much, but I definitely feel like they could raise it a good deal. Is that they didn't show off or present the 50 Super Series cards this week at the at CES, which is a computer show. So, because I think there was an announcement saying, hey, just to let you know, we're going to show you what's happening with RTX and stuff, but there will be no new GPUs announced. So, originally they were rumored to be announcing the 50 Super cards, so like your 5080 Super, 5070 Super, so on and so forth. But because they said we're not showing it, that means, the RAM shortage is having such an impact that they can't even probably manufacture, or at least manufacture enough cards to put out.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely getting very heated here. And I guess one last thing AI related, like I think I read this report at work this morning or somewhere, but the RAM shortage has gotten so bad that I believe Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, and several other executives had to fly out to try and stay over days, I think in South Korea, just to try to get some, or try to like arrange to have some RAM from like SK Hynix and Samsung, just because of how bad it is. So it's definitely, the shortage is definitely not going away anytime soon, and everyone's going to be impacted by it. So again, if you think, oh, it's just PC gamers, they're the ones who are going to have to deal with all this, we're fine everywhere else, no, it's going to impact you across the board. If you use any type of technology, it's going to impact you.
Yep.
But yeah, that is everything in my long-winded, multi-threaded rant. With DLSS off, of course.
Right. Yeah, so, some other thoughts that came to mind. Just thinking about all these, companies buying the wafers and everything, just and buying up GPUs and all of that, and not actually being able to even use them yet. It kind of just makes me think of like when the PS5 came out, for example, and people were just, scalpers were just buying a bunch of them, and then they weren't able to sell off those units. And so they ended up just basically being deep in the hole financially for something that they couldn't even sell because it started becoming easily available. People were able to get it, no problem. And yes, in this case, a lot of it is going to be more along the lines of, okay, this is stuff they can actually still use, Microsoft and everything. They'll certainly find use for it, especially Microsoft, because their cloud services are just like massive. And then of course, Copilot, assuming that continues to go the way that it's been going with being forced on Windows 11 and everything. But I just think of this type of stuff, or like as a completely different one. Back early on in the pandemic, I think is when it was, and people were buying up a bunch of toilet paper, and there was all that, people just getting insane amounts of toilet paper and hand sanitizer and all this other stuff, and it was just, and then in some cases people were trying to scalp it, and in other cases it was just basically like they were stocking up, and they just end up with all this toilet paper that they'll go through eventually, theoretically, but they spent so much money on this that it was just completely unnecessary. And I feel like that's kind of going to be what happens with the RAM and the GPUs and everything else. And it's just going to be like they have to figure out a way to either use it or get rid of it, and they're going to lose a bunch of money on it. And it just makes me think of back to Jensen Huang, from the CEO of NVIDIA, talking, I think it was back in the 30 when the 30 series cards came out. The more you buy, the more you save. It's just like, yeah, that's not how it works. Yeah, like maybe in the long term, but in the short term, you're just going to be spending more money that you don't need to spend. And the real way that you save more money is by not spending it. Imagine that. It's funny. There was some people I worked for. I'm not going to mention any names, and it's highly unlikely they would ever listen. But they were successful business owners, like very successful, very wealthy, all this other stuff. But their definition of making a profit, the way that they saw it is that it doesn't matter how much you sell something for, because you've already spent the money. So anything that you get back from it is pure profit. And it's like, that's not reality, because if you spend more money than you get back, you've lost money. If you had just kept that $5,000 in your bank instead of, then you would still have the $5,000. Whereas if you spend $5,000 and then you sell those products and you get back $3,000, guess what? You lost $2,000. I mean, you're not getting back the money you spent on it. Therefore, you're losing money. That's not a profit. I mean, in their case, even though they were definitely wrong about that, I mean, the types of businesses they ran were businesses where they made a ton of profit anyway, so it wasn't really a big deal. For them, the losses were not significant enough for it to really affect them, because I mean, it's running a convenience store, gas station, like one of the only ones in the town, and a grocery store, which is insanely profitable as long as they actually price things appropriately. And it's like, they could sell things, low selling items, and still, I mean, even though they're not making a profit on those items, they're making so much profit on everything else that it doesn't even matter. But yeah, gotta love how all this stuff works. The more you buy, the more you save. Oh, the more you save, the more you save is really the better way to put it. But anyway. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on into our next topic, staying on NVIDIA, there are reports coming out that apparently, instead of putting out the new 50 series super cards, like you had mentioned, they're actually re-releasing the 3060, which was a 2021 card this year. And apparently it's going to be both 8 and 12 gigabyte versions of the card. And it's to battle the current shortages. This is new to be selling a now 5-year-old card but to people now. I mean, I know like the 3060 is pretty common for Steam users. Like a lot of Steam users have 3060 cards, but apparently they're going to be re-releasing them first quarter of 2026. So what are your thoughts on this?
That's a very strange thing to do. I mean, it's not like selling through whatever stock you have. It's like if you're re-releasing, I mean, I'm assuming that what they're doing is manufacturing more 36s. I'm assuming, I'm hoping that they haven't just been hoarding 3060s and just saying we'll save these for a rainy day or stuff like that. But it's just odd to manufacture a card that hasn't been in production in quite a while. I mean, no one's done that. Sure, you might continue manufacturing a card after, a current gen comes out, maybe for like a little while longer, and then just like sell through whatever cards you have available. Because Nvidia did that with the 20 series cards when the 30 series came out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, granted, I don't really know. Well, actually, I don't even know, because that was right in the middle of crypto boom. So who knows what happened with that? And they were even also selling directly to miners at the time, crypto miners. So who knows what's happening there with the 2060 series cards. And we haven't heard, and they definitely didn't do that during the 40 series card. So this is completely unprecedented. To sell a card that's 2 generations old. And again, if they're manufacturing this card, that's incredible. I have never heard of anything like this happening before, and I'm very curious too, because let me quickly just pull something up here, because I'm wondering how this would work, because does the RTX 36... No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. I was trying to think. I was like, does it even use the same VRAM? But RTX 30 cards use GDDR6, and 50 series cards use DDR7. So, I mean, I guess theoretically it should work. I mean, people have been switching over to DDR4 builds for the PCs because it's been relatively cheaper compared with DDR5 builds. So I mean, I guess it could be cheaper to manufacture GDDR6, so that could be why. I mean, technically it would make sense. At the same time though, I'm like, is that good enough? Should they have, maybe done a 3070 card instead? I mean, I don't know how everything scales out relatively, but with that, I mean, granted, it has 12 gigs of RAM. I mean, if you get the 12 gig card, so I mean, you could definitely still do some gaming, but I'm just wondering like how, if you bought, I don't think people would just go intentionally and buy one now for gaming unless they were really trying to get something on a budget, and they probably would be buying a used GPU since no one's selling it new.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just weird. But also, the card originally released for $330.
Mm-hmm.
How much is that going to cost? You know, how
Yeah.
much is Nvidia going to charge now? I definitely doubt it would be the original price.
Right.
So I'm very curious about that. But funny enough, though, I did actually buy a RTX 3060 just because at one point I was like, if for whatever reason I'm interested in doing something that uses the tensor cores and I want to have it like in a separate build, I have that available. So I was like, all right, cool, I have that. But it's just funny though that they're bringing this back out now, and I'm just like, well, that's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do it, and I mean, it has a lot of current stuff. Like, it has CUDA cores in there, so it has ray tracing RTX. It has DLSS, but I think that it only goes up to DLSS 3, or is it?
I think it's 3.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
it might actually be DLSS 2. I can't remember. Because I know DLSS started with the 20 series, but I don't know if the 20 series got 2.0 or if it got just 1.0. So it might be 3. I mean, I know it's not 4 because DLSS 4, as far as I know, is only in the 40 and 50 series. So
Yeah. So this is just perplexing to me, and
Yeah.
we'll definitely have to see what happens. It's just weird, but I mean, granted, these are weird times anyway, so
right. Yeah.
I guess makes sense. I guess it's par for the course then. But yeah, that's all that I have.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is interesting. I mean, of course, if they actually do both cards, or if they just did the 12 gig cards, I mean, I think realistically, it would probably be good to do both. If they're actually doing this, I would hope they wouldn't just do like the 8 gig cards, because it's like that's pointless. Like 8 gig is fine if you're just doing a budget build, and you know, if you don't really care about playing anything current, you could get by just fine with 8 gigs. And I mean, 8 gigs can still work. Like my laptop has a 4060, which is only an 8 gig card, and I mean, it can still play most games just fine. Even, you know, new stuff that's pretty demanding, but the 12 gig is a much better amount of VRAM to have. Like, I was really happy with how well games ran for the most part on my 2080 Ti, and that's you know, a 2020 card. So, or 2019? No, that's right. No, it's not. I'm sorry. It was a 2019 card, I believe. Pretty sure that's right. And I got it in 2020. Or maybe it was even, I don't remember. Anyway, the point is that it is something that was more than sufficient for most things. Now it's in the living room build that my kids are using. It's been working great for them. You know, they've had no issues with their games running well. Obviously, it's not running anywhere near as well as my card, but my card's also a lot stronger. So, the price is the one thing that makes me the most curious about this, because I remember when the 30 series came out and how shocking it was how affordable the cards were.
Yeah.
I mean, like, especially because it was like right before they announced that I ordered my 2080 Ti, and I got it a lot cheaper than a brand new one. I mean, then, like, because I think the default price was like $1,200 or something, and I got it for $800 or $850 at the time, which was still, you know, it was a good price. But then they showed the 3080 that was like that was stronger and was less expensive, and it's like, ugh. But I mean, at that point, I think I had my 2080 Ti for, I don't know, maybe a few months or something. And as much as I was like, that sucks, at the same time, I mean, the 3080s were really hard to get at that point anyway, when they first came out. And the 2080 Ti served me really well for all the years that I used it, and now it's serving my kids well. So, but yeah, if they could somehow release these cards even close to what they were when they launched originally, that would be really surprising to me. I highly doubt if these cards are actually coming out that they're going to be that cheap. I would honestly not be surprised if they're double the price. Now, double the price is still nowhere near as expensive as the 50 series cards, but it's still way more expensive than they should be. So, I mean, you know, it's kind of it's one of those things where it's hard to say exactly how it would turn out, but I guess we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled about this and find out what happens. I mean, right now is such a weird time because of all these RAM increases and everything and how that's affecting the prices of everything. You know, like, I want to be able to recommend people getting into PC gaming because I still think that it's the best way to play. But the problem is that the prices are so high right now that unless you find, you know, used PC stuff and everything, I mean, which I would recommend anyway, you're going to be spending way more than you should be spending on a PC. And I mean, there are still some things you can do to work around that. And honestly, like, getting used parts is the best thing, especially if you can get it from people who are actually honest enough to not overcharge you. But things are just odd right now. And I don't know how exactly this is going to impact the pricing across the board, especially for consoles, because while I'm not going to buy any consoles, I know lots of people who are console exclusive people, and the way the prices are going to go up for them as well, it's going to make it so that really there isn't a good choice. Consoles will probably still be the cheaper option, but you're also getting a lot less for your money. I mean, you always have been, but it'll be probably even more so with the prices going up. So, I don't know. Either way, I guess we'll just see what happens this year, and in the meantime, enjoy what we have, which is not a difficult thing because I upgraded my PC last year, and I'm golden for years to come.
Yeah. One last thing I sort of want to add to this is even if Nvidia were to release this thing at $330, you're gonna be really it's compared with what's available right now, it's a bad deal because the RTX 5060, I think Ti, you can get that for $400.
Oh,
it has 16 gigs of VRAM, and it's more powerful.
I didn't know that. Okay,
I could be wrong. It's either RTX 5060 or RTX 5060 Ti that's around that price range. I can do that. You could get an RTX 9060 XT for roughly $400 as well. Same thing, 16 gigs of VRAM.
Yeah.
And it's going to be much more powerful than the 3060 Ti. So,
well, I guess the real question though is, are those prices going to hold? And that's the real thing that
I have
makes me say
partially accounted for the prices increasing already because originally they were cheaper. Like the RTX 9060 was $350, but it's been nudged up somewhat higher. So like you can get one for like $380, but I decided to go up to $400 for like more third-party cards that, you know, charge a little more. So I just say $400 as a rough estimate. And sort of like same thing with the 5060 Ti. I was gonna say it's like rough estimate $400. So, you know, if they price at $329 for $70 more, you can get a way more powerful card and get 4 extra gigs of VRAM.
Yeah.
So if they try to price, you know, a 3060 at more than that, that's just insane. I mean, I don't care if the RAM prices are skyrocketing across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It makes no sense to buy that card for more than a card that is more powerful and on paper cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, reality is different from on paper, but as of
Right.
what we have right now, you can definitely get those cards for roughly that price, whether you're going to like online stores, whether you're going to like physical retail stores like a Micro Center. You can get those cards much cheaper than what you could be paying if they're like increasing the price for a 3060 much more than what it was at launch. So,
Well,
if this is true,
here's a question though. Let's say that something like the 5060 Ti, the 16 gig card, went up to $1,200, and then these cards released at let's say 330. We'll just even say $400, up to like $500 for the 8 and 12 gigs respectively. Then
Yeah,
would you still
then-
say the same thing? I mean, obviously this is all hypothetical, but
Oh,
because
yeah,
the 56 is
hypothetical.
a newer card, much newer card and stronger.
hypothetical, but the only reason I would say it's still a bad choice because AMD would do something stupid and increase the price, but you could still pay $700 for a base 9060 XT and
Yeah.
still get the 16 gigs
Well,
of VRAM.
but if
and
that
still have a card.
increases, though, I mean, I'm not even just talking about 5060 Ti. That was just an example. But
Oh yeah,
if all the prices increase,
Mm.
and let's say they all go up that 150% price increase for each thing, then it would still end up being, I mean, it would be still be significantly cheaper for a 3060. And if a person's wanting to upgrade, yeah, they wouldn't necessarily want to do that unless they just have like a 9 or 10 series card. But if they're if they're building a brand new PC, they're just wanting to get started, and they have the option of either spending the lower amount on a 30 series 60, we'll say the 12 gig card, versus spending $1,200, $1,400 for either a one of the 90 series cards or one of the 50 series cards, then what would you say?
That's a good question, and I just thought about this, and it's, I guess because it's so, I guess because they're so overshadowed by AMD and NVIDIA, I don't think about it, and most people don't think about it either, is Intel. They have their Arc B580 card, and surprisingly, the price on that card has been very stable. Like, it's still...
Yeah, but is it
still
any
get one for
good, though,
$250.
is the question.
The performance from reviews have been good for modern games. If you're playing older games, that's when you start getting issues with some of the
Gotcha.
driver supports. But on modern games, the performance is actually pretty good, especially if you're talking about price to performance. Like for $250, you're getting something that's probably, maybe possibly something that rivals a 3070 card, maybe something like that. So I mean, for $250, if you don't play too many older games, then you probably would be fine. But if you're just trying to, in general, though, then I would probably would have to say no until Intel fixes like the issues with cards. I mean, they definitely have been making progress from what I've heard, but there's still some stuff that needs to get patched up. But time will tell if they decide to stick with it. I mean, I don't know if they actually did announce anything for the rumored Battle Mage GPUs that are like the 770 cards or something like that, but if they are still trying to commit to making dedicated GPUs, then maybe they will fix things up and they could possibly be a contender in the GPU space, but they have to sort of like earn that right to get in there and stuff. But so yeah, I guess that's my answer is if you're only playing more modern games, consider Intel, because that would even still be cheaper than the 3060 and would be more powerful. And it has the same amount of VRAM as well, too, at 12 gigs. So
yeah, Okay.
I would definitely say that.
All right. Good to know. Cool. All right. You want to cover this last topic?
Sure thing. So sadly, there is a report that Valve is going to be ending the production of the LCD Steam Deck completely, and they have slowly been phasing out their models, but they said they were going to keep the 256 model as the baseline for the Steam Deck, and just offer a more affordable version. And this was, I believe, it was $400. I think they were keeping that at.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So they've definitely been doing that. However, because of the RAM shortage, it appears that based on a note on the Steam Deck store page, they're ending production of the LCD model completely. So from now on, it's just going to be the Steam Deck OLED. I mean, if you can find a refurbished model on the store, like I know that they've been popping up on the page here and there in the past, so it could pop up again. But as of right now, let me actually just quickly pull up the page on the refurbished page.
Yeah, I checked yesterday. They didn't have any. They were completely out of stock. But
yeah.
like you said,
okay. Well, never mind. It's not LCD, but yeah, they just have they have several refurbished models for the OLED right now. But yeah, the LCD is pretty much gone. So like the cheapest version outside of a refurbished OLED or refurbished LCD is just going to be the 512 Steam Deck OLED, and that is going to cost you $549, which is a real shame. And I definitely have much more to say on that. But what are your thoughts on this discovery?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's disappointing, more just in terms of the cost. Now, I personally think the OLED is way better than the LCD, but the LCD is still a great device, and it is a shame that this one's no longer going to be made for people who just wanted a cheaper option. I would love to think that if they're not going to be making this one anymore, that they'll lower the price of the lower tier OLED Steam Deck, but I don't think that's happening. I would say that's highly unlikely. If they did, though, that would be amazing. Drop it to $400 for the the bottom tier OLED. Of course, then I could see them being like, "Oh, we're gonna release a like a 2 terabyte version," or yeah, because it's 1 terabyte for our OLED, right? Or is it 2 terabytes?
I think so. Yeah, that's what the page says. The page says it's 1 terabyte.
Yeah, 1 terabyte. That's right, because it was 512 for the top tier with the original, and then 1 terabyte for the OLED. But yeah, doing a 2 terabyte version. I mean, I wouldn't go buy the 2 terabyte because I don't care that much. I have a terabyte of micro SD in addition to the 1 terabyte SSD in there. So, but yeah, it's a shame, especially now with my son. I mean, I've already told you this, but for listeners, my oldest son, who's 10, has been saving up to get himself a Switch Lite, and I am so sick of everything with Nintendo and the way that they've been doing things with digital games and everything, and just the headache it's been trying to work all of that out. And so I told my son, if you can save up what it would cost to get a Switch Lite, I will cover the remaining difference to help you get a Steam Deck. Now, of course, the idea would be that unless we found like a really good deal on an OLED, it would probably just be an LCD that's either used or refurbished or something like that. But most of the games he wants to play are PC games anyway. I mean, like Minecraft is the big thing, and he could play that on PC. It's going to run and look better on the Steam Deck than it does on the Switch anyway. And furthermore, then we don't have to deal with Nintendo's nonsense. And then he'll have a lot more options. The family sharing is way, way better on Steam than it is on the Switch. It's not convoluted. It's very simple. And he just has access to a whole lot more games. Plus the option of emulation, which I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of in the future. I may even eventually see if I can rip my my Switch cartridges to do Switch emulation, so that there would be a way for them to easily play some of these games without having to deal with Nintendo's garbage. But regardless, with all that being said, I hope that this isn't going to cause any major problems, and that people who still want to get a Steam Deck will still find ways to get it, whether it's buying refurbished or, if they want to get a regular LCD, as long as they're still in stock. That could be, some real options. I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I would never recommend an LCD over an OLED, except for the cost. That's really the only reason I would ever recommend it, because the OLED is just so much better in so many ways. Most of all because the screen is just drastically better. But even still, it's a better screen than the Switch 2s on the LCD. So, despite being, obviously lower resolution and lower refresh rate. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's definitely a shame. It definitely was the more affordable option for people interested in getting a Steam Deck. So the fact that this entry price has been removed is definitely disappointing. And I didn't think about it, but it would be. But as you said, it would be really cool if they decided to drop the price of the 512 gigabyte model and just be like, all right, here, we're gonna knock, $50, $100 off, and that is now the cheaper model. I think that would be cool. Most likely won't, but it would be nice. And on occasion, Valve has had sales for the Steam Deck where it's been I think either 10 or 20% off. I can't remember which one. Maybe it might have just been 10, but they've had discounts for it. So you could possibly get one at a cheaper price that way, but otherwise there's really no other way to really get it. And like you said, unless you're buying something refurbished or buying a used one, there's no other way to get it. It's not like you can find one in stores, or it's been sold only directly through Valve, which has its benefits, like the fact that you could avoid scalpers, and the way they've handled things also has been great for getting your pre-orders in, and that stuff. But other than that, though, if you're just trying to find one, it's gonna be harder that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a shame, but this is just another casualty in the AI RAM ordeal that has been plaguing every industry, and Valve obviously is feeling this, and as we've said before, this could also impact the Steam machine and release and stuff like that. So that's another topic altogether, but we'll definitely have to see what happens there. But yeah, hopefully, and who knows, maybe hopefully one day they might be able to bring back the LCD models, assuming of course this, if the Steam Deck 2 hasn't been announced yet, and then the OLED models for the original model become the cheaper versions, or they say, all right, now you can get this cheaper model for for the OLED, and we have the new Steam Deck 2, and that's our new flagship.
Yeah.
But hopefully, there will be some cheaper option before that happens. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna do an LCD deck again. I think that they did that with the original, and that it's gonna be OLED going forward. because it's not like Nintendo where, Nintendo, the first time, I mean, initially they did the LCD. It was, cheaper to manufacture everything else. And they did the OLED several years later. Instead, with Valve, they did the LCD, and then a year and a half later, they had the OLED. And I feel like I read in an interview at some point, they basically said that they're planning to do OLED going forward. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe I remember wrong, or maybe that was just a rumor and it wasn't true. I honestly don't know. But regardless of any of that, I do think that there is a real possibility that we're not going to see another LCD Steam Deck. Either that, I mean, I guess it's possible that maybe they could even just, when they release the Steam Deck 2, they just have the option of choosing between LCD and OLED. And, the LCD obviously being cheaper. But honestly, I just don't know. The one thing I will say is that there is more than a decent chance that whenever the Steam Deck 2 gets announced, if it's not an OLED at launch, I might just wait and then just buy the OLED later on. Because even though I know it's going to have like a heck of a lot better screen than like the Switch 2 does, the Switch 2, that circumstance was different because of the fact that I wanted something to be able to play my Switch 1 backlog, not realizing at the time how bad of an experience it was going to be. And that was the only real reason why I bought the Switch 2 when I did. Whereas with the Steam Deck, it's like, well, if the Steam Deck 2 will be great. I'm sure it's going to be, obviously a lot more powerful than the original Steam Deck. But if it's not OLED, I would probably just wait until they put out the OLED, because I can still play all my PC games and I have multiple options of where to play them. If I need a portable option and I can't play a game on my Steam Deck, which I pretty much can play anything on my Steam Deck except for the newest stuff, then I have a laptop too that is a lot more capable than the Steam Deck, and then I have my desktop and I can still play all those games. So anyway, yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts. All right, well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
My recommendation is going to be, if you are a Dragon Ball Z fan, to watch Super Mario Bros. Z by, let me make sure I got the name right. Alvin Earthworm is the name of the channel. And like I said, I don't remember. I thought there was a revival probably around like the mid to late 2010s, where another episode was being made. But at least you can see the original 6 to 8 episodes, and like, while the story never concluded, it was still fun to watch just for the fight choreography alone. And then just seeing, sort of a DBZ parody, to a degree. It's not like a comedy parody, but just like an inspired series, but just with Mario and Sonic characters. And I mean, it just was entertaining to watch. So yeah. If you like that type of thing, I definitely recommend giving that a go.
All right, good stuff. Well, I have a few recommendations. First of all, I'm just going to recommend yet again tacos, because we had tacos for dinner and they were delicious. And tacos are just great no matter what. At least in my opinion. Maybe not no matter what, but the point is in general, tacos are great. My next recommendation: when cooking pork loin, whether you're smoking it, cooking it otherwise, rather than going up to the 160 temperature that you typically see to cook pork to, you can actually cook it and it'll be perfectly safe to eat, especially with the pork loin, while still moist rather than getting dried out, because pork loin dries out pretty fast because it's very low fat content. If you do it to 145. 145 is the ideal internal temperature, especially because after you pull it out, it will still cook a little bit further, so it'll probably get up to 150 to 155. But the main thing is it's going to maintain that juiciness a lot more than you get if you cook it for longer. With pork shoulder, any sort of dark meat, getting it up to 160 is a good plan. Sometimes even, I think you can actually go higher than that because there's enough fat content to where it's still going to stay moist. But it does not so much with the pork loin. So 145, that's what you want to aim for. My next recommendation is regarding Hades 2, using the Strength Arcana card rather than using Death Defiance. It's going to seem very counterintuitive, especially if you're like me and you're not very good at the game in general, especially early on before you get comfortable with everything. Because of the fact that you don't have an insurance policy if you die. But especially at the more you play, you're going to find yourself most likely able to survive a lot more easily with Strength Arcana activated. And you're going to be taking out enemies a lot faster because you're going to be dealing a lot more damage. So I personally think the trade-off is worth it. I'm planning to stick with that in general going forward. Basically, unless the game forces me to use Death Defiance, as in like in the case of the some of the challenges where it has it on by default, then I am not going to use Death Defiance. Now, maybe once I turn off God mode and don't have the damage resistance, that may end up changing my mind, but I still have a feeling that it's still going to be the best way to play. I just have to be a little more careful. So that's what I got for recommendations. Dissuasions.
My dissuasion is going to be for Salt and Sanctuary. If you are going into the Watching Woods and you eventually end up in the Sunken Keep, and there is a sort of there's a way to climb down. You're about to enter a boss fight. Do not go to the boss fight because chances are you will die in that fight, and then you have to backtrack quite a long way. You have to go all the way through the woods again. Make sure and not screw up the platforming there, just to get back. And again, this is a Souls-like, so if you have a lot of salt on you and you die again, that salt's gone. So I highly recommend instead going up and around through the other passageway after you fight the Mad Alchemist, and then go to a sanctuary that way, and then just come back around and fight the boss. And I think that boss is also optional as well, so if you don't feel like fighting him at the time, you can always just come back later on anyway. But yeah, so my dissuasion is to just, like, if you enter Sunken Keep immediately from the Watching Woods after doing some platforming, go back, because you're not ready yet.
All right. Well, where can people find you?
Oh, you didn't do your dissuasion?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I guess that's true. My dissuasion is, once again, in Hades 2, when Kronos is standing in the middle of the arena during Phase 2, do not stand next to him to attack, as he can one-shot you. So make sure you don't do that, because you will regret it, especially if you're close to beating him and then you make a dumb mistake like I did that one run. But yeah. Okay. Now, where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel, I am Xeracon, that's IAMXERACON, so youtube.com/@ I am Xeracon. No new content this week. Still trying to decide how I want to get things set up for the one video I plan on doing, but until I have that situated, I won't be able to record for that. I also have another channel, Justin's Bible Blog, so that's at Justin's Bible Blog. No content there either, but that's just because I haven't felt motivated enough to make another video, but I'm trying to hopefully get one out soon there as well, but we'll see when that happens. But yeah.
All right. Well, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at The Frozen Gamer 87, and there hasn't been anything new in a bit. There are a few things that are technically in the works, but they're kind of still more in planning stages than actual production stages. Like I know more or less what I'm going to be saying, I just haven't taken the time to record. So, for the time being, the last major video I put out was why I love PC gaming, which both has an hour plus long version that has the whole thing, and also a playlist that just has the individual segments. So those are both options for that. And yeah, apart from that, it's like we'll just kind of see when I get around to any of the other things. I'm hoping to have that controller review and the downsides of PC gaming videos up before my next 24-hour stream, which won't be until sometime in March, most likely. I don't know the exact date. I haven't really looked at the calendar yet. That's typically when I do my extra life. So we'll just kind of see how things go with that. But there is the YouTube and Rumble channels for the video version of the podcast. On YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find it there. The video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. There's also the audio-only version of the podcast, which goes live on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, and other places. Unfortunately, last week, although I uploaded it ahead of time, while it was processing, I mean, since it took a little bit to process, I was working on getting it uploaded elsewhere and forgot to actually schedule or publish it. So it didn't get published until today, until the 6th. So the January 2nd episode, which was our Game of the Year episode, did not actually go up for the audio version until January 6th. But that's not the normal thing. So normally, it goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time, as long as there are no technical issues or dumb issues on my part. So, lastly, I do have a YouTube cooking channel, but haven't put anything out on it in a while. That channel is called Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And like I said, haven't put anything out in over a year now, but there's some great recipes on there. I may eventually put out more. I don't know. YouTube videos in general are just not priority for me. And, we'll see when I get back to the regular content publishing. It's never been regular apart from, well, I guess last year before I stopped doing all of the comparisons, it was pretty consistent, but we'll just kind of see what happens going forward this year. 2026 is going to be a potentially weird year. So we'll just see what happens. But anyway, the only other thing is that if you want to contact us, you can send us an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you could comment on any of the video versions of the podcast. And if you have something that you want to share with us, whether it's a question, comment, or you want to tell us to Persona 3 ourselves, we can certainly talk about that on the show. But even if you don't reach out to us, we'll keep talking 2.5 to 3 hours every week, because this is how we catch up from week to week, and it's a great outlet to talk about video games. So that is everything. Well, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, remember, the less you buy, the more you save. Orange Box Podcast, out.